Good morning. Okay, so today I'm looking at SPX here, as we always do, especially on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And it's either a measured move or another whipsaw. There's been plenty of whipsaws intraday. And so this pullback into the rising 20 and this little support area there. Had that reversal day where buyers were falling all over themselves again, trying to push it up. And yesterday it held up for quite a while. And then on the last attempt to rally, you only get so many tries before it goes down, before it doesn't go up. And in the latter part of the day, buyers gave it up and stops got hit and, drove it down. And now we got this big red day. And that leads to the potential possibility for a measured move lower, which goes something like that. The first move, the attempt to turn, the failure, and then the move down, potential to here. Now, that doesn't mean it's going down there today. Right? It's still got to get through that low, right, which is right there, which shouldn't be all that hard if it starts to fail. And reading his comments there. Somebody there's looking at charts, trader, this stuff to line up this gamma, whatever, which is at that high there. So to get through that high, things are gapping up a little bit here. Should be quite difficult. And you see the highs right here, since there's a little M top there and it's fallen. Now, if we get a retest of this area, that makes it even harder to travel all the way back up here. A lot of what we do, reading charts without indicators, is common sense. Right? The big part is look to the left and see where buyers were before and see where sellers were before. Look at the distance between those areas. The closer they are, the more choppy and erratic trading will be. So just like prices came down to this level here, and they did to this level here and tried, as this began to fail, there was really nothing to stop it from going down. And so it fell into, that area before it began to stabilize. So if it comes down here, right, down here, and begins to jiggle like that, where it can't rally over here, that would open up the door to that measured move occurring. So there's a lot of things have to happen, right? If this, then that. Right? So right now we're waiting to see what this is as it develops here this morning. But this daily pattern is suggestive of it coming down here eventually. Of course, as I said, it's got to get through this area. And if it can get up here and even up to the top of the red bar, well, then this becomes a heck of a lot less likely, common sense. So this is going to be the resistance area. As far as SPX goes, I've got 3960 written down, where there's some premium there, and that is up at this level. Right? So that seems reasonable. We've had better, but this is reasonable. I wish there was enough premium up above here to get a little bit above it, but there really, there isn't much of anything up there. All right. And as far as playing between here and here, remember was training day comment yesterday, you want to go home? Well, you just don't know. 40-10 for Friday? Who knows? I mean, you got to turn this around before we could consider that. But if you wanted to sell that and say, I don't think that's happening, I think that's a reasonable bet, without obviously without knowing what's going to happen today and tomorrow. To sell 4,010 is reasonable. Now, if this was a gap down day and at the end of today it was a green bar, the closing up here, I'd say you're going to be sweating that one out. But so far at the moment, I'd say that's a pretty good, you know, assumption and trade. If there's premium down there, which I didn't look that far away, um, I've got only today up there quotes. Anyway, so on the downside, I had written down 38.65, which is right at this MA, and I'm not so keen on doing that. I'd rather see if this actually fell apart and came down here to see if we could get below something, some premium below the 50 MA. Because if it clears this, 65 should be a bunt. You got 38.55 from yesterday. Makes sense. Okay. So unless today turns into a real rout, you should be fine with that, especially with the 50 MA as, a line of defense. Okay. So let's take a look at the other markets. All right. So where the futures are, we always look at the futures and they're just jiggling down there at the bottom of the red bar. Right? As I say, whipsaws, had that big green bar, and to go back down to the low, it happens, but that's what opens up the door to the measured move, because it's not supposed to happen. Now, if it trades under here, well, it probably stops at the 50, but you look to the left to see what's below there, and it's kind of jagged, so it's not so easy to define that. And this is pretty important that it holds here, because if it doesn't, right, that's the measured move scenario. And, we would see if it probably would stall at the 50, but with this pattern, unlikely to hold at the 50. So other markets might be a guide. There's other markets come down to their support areas. And so looking at that measured move situation, I guess, down here, where they've got this cluster of pivots in this area, that would be a target point where I'd be watching. And Qs didn't get beat up so much. So, down, back up, holding up at the top here. So what else to possibly look for? These are just guidelines, so what I would be thinking and looking, if this actually did start to fall apart and we've got technology, some rotation to pick up some cheap technology like Apple, considered cheap, we'll find out. This may be coming down toward this low and continuing to show relative strength. Well, S&Ps are down. That would be a scenario. Now that this is retraced up this far into the red bar, it really shouldn't go back down there. But, this market is one of whipsaws. And as I look at the weekly chart, if this doesn't close green or get deeper into here, or if it does close red, that certainly does open up the thought of, yes, going considerably lower. Right. Let's look at the Russell, which was quite unloved yesterday. And so another thing to be watching for would be if other markets were going down and the Russell reached this level, right? You can set an alert there. You can do it with the IWM, right? And yesterday we were looking at this area, right? And it eventually, pre-market, I spoke about this area, and then it did get down there, and that was just, a heads up that maybe other markets would stabilize. So I'm always looking at other markets to see how one might affect the other: relative strength, relative weakness, support, resistance, trend, and so on. Okay, so wide range bar down. Factory work says consolidation. Right? So we'll see. It's got the void up here. It shouldn't go that far into the red bar. Right? That's the assumptions we make when we see this type of a pattern. 30-year bond, right? Stabilizing here, bounced off of the low a little bit. That there's that significant support that we've been looking at or made you aware of over the last few months. right? The 10-year is on top of it, not deeply into it, right? Where the 30-year got down here. So that's stabilizing there. Give markets a little rest. One second, guys. So keep an eye on this, see if it starts going down, interest rates going up. That's what's been unnerving the markets. And, the chair, there was a story this morning, the chair was saying that whatever the stimulus is, that there's really no concern for, how did he put it? He didn't say inflation. It was more about inflation to be concerned with. Maybe not, but, if you've been to the gas pump lately, you know that there's been some inflation. Now, this came down a lot, and that's a help. But, crude oil coming up from, $35 up to $68, which where the resistance was, there's some inflation there. All right. There's your crude oil. That's not doing much here. Gold, kind of holding here, doing nothing. Maybe we get the retest, waiting to see. Silver was weaker yesterday. That's coming down to its pivot low. So we shall see if it holds there. If this starts to turn back up, maybe, silver gold comes back into a long kind of a player, kind of any play at all, other than it really intraday type of plays if you trade there. And let's take a look at IWM for a moment. That swing low down there, so far, where is it? 319. So just gapping up a little bit there. Spiders, 390, pretty much unchanged, which is what you would hope for if you want that measured move, right? So if it was gapping up to 392.5, right, the idea of the measured move would be much less likely. But, hanging here at around 391, gapping up a bit, not that big of a deal. So really neutral, and we'll just see how everything plays out. 215 for IWM. I wouldn't take that bet, McGraw. Because if this turns into a 1, 2, 3, I mean, you know me. I look for the no-brainers. You're a McGraw. I can't take the heat. 212. Okay, I'm just reading 212. Well, there's nothing to stop it. Look at the chart. If this hangs here for 2 days and Friday turns into a rout day, I would be looking to short this thing all the way down to 208, 206. 205 for next week. The faster it falls, the better. Yes. But, we got time here to digest whatever's going to happen. We can discuss it in the room. Let's look at the transports, and then I'll take a peek at the internals. So had a gap reversal, which yesterday I mentioned not really a big deal. But now it's broken this pivot low, right there, which has violated the uptrend mildly on the daily chart, right? How do we do that without any trend lines, fib lines, Gann lines, and so on and so forth? Is it making higher highs and higher lows? Right? Common sense, right? Your higher high, higher low. It broke the prior low, so it broke the uptrend. Did it mildly. 20 MA is there. Minor support is here. It could pull back a bit more and still be okay. All right. Tim's mentioning Intel gapping up. Well, semiconductors given back yesterday. 68 was as high as 68.50. Okay, that's interesting. And it's up there. So that's pretty darn bullish. So that's an interesting scenario, kind of playing into the scenario of tech showing some relative strength and maybe, the others being weak. Well, we'll see how it unfolds during the trading day. Yeah, it's gapping up above a big red bar there. So that's bullish. And just looking over to the left, well, that's where it backed off from. But interesting. It's been going up for a while. We'll see what it does. Can it hold the gap? Looked at the transports and quick peek and internals. Option traders still betting this market's going up. Maybe, but we need to see this like that, even into these bands. This is now into a bullish level. For an all-out bullish signal, we need both to agree. And this doesn't agree. So let's just call it bullish to neutral, with a little bit of a bearish bent on there. It really doesn't tell us much when they don't agree, other than this coming down to where it is. And you can see look at the day-to-day here. So the way this is coming down is it's coming down with some power. And yesterday showed some power. And all of these hedge fund managers, money managers that you see on CNBC, they're all singing the same tune, right? So they're all going to be buying the dip. How far does it dip? If we get the measured move, I think that's great. It'd be a bit deep, but it should set up some good buying opportunities. So let's see what today brings us. All yours, Dan.
Good morning. Yeah, I'm sure wanting that measured move scenario for, the reasons you talked about. It'll be a better entry. Internals will be in alignment. All right, so all our opens are fine. Here's one LYB we shorted. We have a third left. It looks good. We shorted a call spread yesterday in VIAC. We're getting in losing my pre-market here. Getting a nice $6 gap down on this. And Greg, remember I told you that looked like a directional also on that weekly.
Yeah.
Nice gap down there. So I tightened the stuff on our call spread. His cousin, Diska, we'll keep an eye on him too, but I like the other one better. Top, we shorted. Fossil, and we're in trail mode on top. Fossil we shorted, and that's gapping down, looks weak. So all the opens are fine. Just ask if you have any other questions on those. Go right to some gappers. Mountain, this is a hotel. Gapping down to 80. That's a big gap down. A lot of this, here's Marriott. A lot of the leisure kind of reopening trades were weak yesterday. Marriott, we shorted a call spread on RCL yesterday, weak, upside shakeout. Oliver, Netflix. Yeah, the last 2 days, this one has been the best looking FANG. And it's gapping up to resistance, so maybe 30-minute high. I gave Apple to our subscribers, both as a put spread and a long calls, but it has to take out yesterday's high. Matt's asking about ODP. ODP, yeah. That's a continuation breakdown, sure. Yeah, has price void, sure. Kind of reminds me of our fossil. Say somewhat, no pattern's going to be identical, but upside shakeout, bearish consolidation, breakdown, price void. Yeah, I like ODP. And that had to have a reverse split because I remember this thing at $2. Oh, yeah. Okay. Thanks, TJ. I had Bryant as a in my gap up, and it's a bullish pre-market. So that looks like a day trade long. I'll put that over here. That's a nice, very nice pre-market. And today, MT Live, folks, we're talking about what we do every single day here in the green trading room for the first 90 minutes, starting at 9 a.m. We're doing pre-market prep. We're getting our tier ones. We're monitoring our opens, adjusting stops, looking for new trades. So it'll be another great session today. But so this is not a swing trade, even if it didn't have earnings. But for the first hour trader, that's a nice pre-market setup. Zekin, Sam, gapping up 1433, but there's no setup. It's a bullish pre-market move, but there's no setup. So it's not a tier one. I'm moving on to leading them. Eyes, upside shakeout, gap down to 8 and change. Still looks lower. These things that go up like a rockets, they will come back to earth. So, yeah, I ain't bad. Yeah, I did post WGO as a put spread candidate. McGraw, we can sell the April 70s. So, yeah, let's keep an eye on that. Put them in another window over here. WGO. A TCAT. Remember, this thing's been on fire recently. If there's any juice at the 70s, I don't even know if it's optionable. But with today's gap down under yesterday's low, that looks like a short-term top for a call spread. I'll look here real quick. TKAT has no options. All right. Romeo, Greg found yesterday. If set an alarm, if it can take out yesterday's low, it looks like it's short. Yeah, AMAT in the semis, if AMAT can break out, Intel, I posted a put spread already. VNet had earnings. I like the retest. I like yesterday's bar, bottoming tail. So that I like that. Adobe had earnings. No pattern yet. We'll come back to you. Bingo. It's range bounds. So there's no pattern, but under last week's low, it looks like a short. Riley, no pattern. Air, gapping up a little bit. We can find better. SCS, we can find better. Lead shop. Over yesterday's high. Yeah, the way, it's kind of just dead here. It's stabilized, but it can't get itself moving. But it could be a put spread. Some other put spreads we've been watching, Zoom kind of made the turn. Some of the high flyers. Piton is a watch. RNG. Still, I need a more potent turn here. Otherwise, it's bearish consolidation and you can short a breakdown. The weekly, I could see the weekly going to $300, no problem at all. Enog, no pattern, gapping down a little bit, but it's garbage. Home was gapping up, now it's coming in, filling the gap. What a nice breakout. Well, kind of a sloppy W bottom. I don't like the way it trades. Look how whippy that is. John PLBY 21 and change. It's just not my wheelhouse. my wheelhouse is my checklist, right? So it has to be a compelling pattern, multiple time frames. It's far from the 20, gapping up. It's of no interest to me. HOFV. But why, John? Why? Can you give them their business model? Are you kidding me? Have you ever heard me talk fundamentals? But tell me why you think that that setup is in my wheelhouse. All right, WGO we talked about. Yeah, so 30-minute high. I like the bullish gap. It's a buy setup at the 20. Got it. Okay, I totally missed that. Totally missed that. I guess too early for me. Um, but McGraw, keep an eye on this. Maybe 10, 15-minute high. Let the options contract a little bit. Rail, big old mess. APG, nothing. APTO, gap's too big. Pill, bearish gap. Um, I don't know what to do with that. It's a bearish gap, maybe 30-minute low, GME, earnings. Remember I said yesterday, if I had to do something in the earnings, I would have sold the 350 call spread just because that was a bearish pattern. And I still think, I know I said I don't use the word fundamentals, but I'm still fundamentally bearish on that piece of garbage.